Very uncertain for the entire league in general, but you're a free agent for the first time. Have you thought about what free agency might look like for you if you'd like to be back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a restricted free agent, so I think that changes things a little bit, but I've loved my years here in Indiana. So obviously with a lot of uncertainty, you don't know what's to come, but I've built a life here, and I love this franchise. I love the people. I love the fans, so we'll see.
The news hit like a thunderclap out of clear Indiana sky. Lexi Hall is gone. Just let that sink in for a moment. The Indiana Fever, a team that just spent an entire season battling through what felt like a constant storm, has now lost one of its most crucial anchors. And this isn't just another player moving on in free agency. This is a tectonic shift that exposes everything fragile and uncertain about this franchise. Fans are rightfully spinning, asking one desperate question: what the heck just went wrong here? But the real question, the one that should send a chill down the spine of every person in that Fever front office, is what does this mean for the heart and soul of their team? Caitlin Clark? Because the quiet departure of a player like Lexi Hall often speaks volumes more than any loud, dramatic exit ever could.
Tweeted and was just saying a bunch about pride and how proud she was of this team. Have you kind of had similar emotions the last couple days, and how do you balance that with a very painful ending to the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think like following the game, it's so disappointing to lose, and most seasons end on a loss, so it's really hard and challenging. But I think when you sit back and think about our year and everything that we were able to accomplish with the circumstances that we were faced with.
Before we dive deep into this, if you're as invested in the future of the WNBA and stories with as much drama and consequence, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We break down the stories everyone is talking about, and you won't want to miss what comes next for this team. So, how do we get here? To understand the shock of Lexi Hall leaving, you have to understand the subtle art of the athlete goodbye. And it was all there, hidden in plain sight during her final interviews. When asked about free agency, she didn't gush about her future in Indiana. She didn't talk about unfinished business. Listen to the language. She said, and I quote, "I'm a restricted free agent." So I think that changes things a little bit. That right there is a first clue. That's the language of someone who knows her future is not entirely in her own hands, but is also not fighting to stay.
Very uncertain for the entire league in general, but you're a free agent for the first time. Have you thought about what free agency might look like for you if you'd like to be back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a restricted free agent, so I think that changes things a little bit, but I've loved my years here in Indiana. So obviously with a lot of uncertainty, you don't know what's to come, but I've built a life here, and I love this franchise. I love the people. I love the fans, so we'll see what comes. Elliot?
Then came the carefully polite appreciation. I've loved my years here in Indiana. I love this franchise. I love the people. I love the fans. Notice what's missing? She never said, "I love the direction of this team." She never said, "I believe in what we're building." She expressed gratitude for the past, not commitment to the future. And then the killer phrase, the one athletes use when they are mentally already out the door: "We'll see what comes." That's not uncertainty. That's a farewell in disguise. It was a masterclass in leaving a door open without making any promises. A clear signal to anyone listening that her time in Indiana was over. But why does this hurt so much? Because Lexi Hall wasn't a star. She wasn't the one putting up 20 points a night or getting the signature shoe deals. But she was something perhaps more valuable, something championships are quietly built upon. She was the glue. In a season that constantly threatened to spiral into complete and utter chaos, Lexi Hall was one of the few stabilizing forces.
To sit down and not do anything for a little bit. Yeah.
For you, what was this season like in terms of the different iterations and the different versions of yourself that you had to play, different roles, shooting, defense, diving, all those different things?
Yeah, I mean, the year, I feel like my role changed throughout the course of the year. I think continuing to just show up as my best self, regardless of starting or not, or playing more on the ball defensively or off, whatever the night looked like, I feel like my ability to adapt grew throughout the year. And that's something that I think I can continue to work on my game, is being flexible and being able to really just do whatever the team needs. And this year, I think everyone on our team was challenged in a way.
Think about the identity of a team. It's not just about who scores the most. It's about who sets the tone. Lexi was that tone setter. She was the player diving on the floor for loose balls when they were down by 20, sending a message that no matter the score, the effort never dips. She was the one chasing down opponents on fast breaks, refusing to give up on a play that 90% of players would have conceded. This does something to a team's psyche. It creates a standard. It shames anyone who isn't giving maximum effort. She did all the little, gritty, unglamorous things that never make a highlight reels but are the absolute foundation of any winning team. Her value wasn't a stat sheet. It was in the energy she injected into every single moment she was on the court. She was a definition of a player who does the dirty work so the stars can shine. And now, that workhorse, that relentless engine, is walking away. This loss isn't just about subtracting a player from a roster. It's about stripping the team of its identity. Who brings that same defensive tenacity now? Who sacrifices their body play after play? These are intangible qualities that you can't just plug in with a draft pick or a free agent signing. They are built on trust and repetition, and the Fever just lost a massive chunk of theirs.
Or just every single thing we faced, I think, is something that we won't forget. Like the injuries, the playing through people that playing with groups that we are just haven't even practiced with for the first time in games. Like we were faced with so much uncertainty. So I think there isn't like one pinpoint game where I'm like, I'll remember that game.
And let's be brutally honest about the toxic environment she's leaving. The Indiana Fever season was a masterclass in dysfunction, a case study in how not to build a cohesive unit. It was a perfect storm of devastating injuries that crippled their depth, coaching decisions that often left fans and analysts utterly baffled, and a media cyclone that followed one player and one player alone, Caitlin Clark. This created a bizarre two-tier reality within the organization. Through all of that, the lineup was a revolving door of inconsistency. Players were shoved into different roles on a nightly basis, with no consistency, no rhythm, no chance to build the on-court chemistry that is the lifeblood of any successful team. There was no clear system, no defined roles, just a constant state of adjustment and reaction. And Lexi Hall was the poster child for that instability and the resulting exhaustion. One night, she was a defensive specialist tasked with shutting down the other team's most dangerous wing. The next, she was being asked to be a catch-and-shoot spacer on the perimeter. Then, she was a small ball forward, banging in the post against players much larger and stronger than her. She was asked to be a chameleon on a team that couldn't decide what color wanted to be, and that is a recipe for burnout. In one of her most telling comments, she said, "I feel like my ability to adapt grew throughout the year." That sounds like a positive spin on resilience, but read between the lines. That is a statement of someone who was constantly being thrown into the deep end, someone who never knew what her primary job would be from one game to the next. She described being faced with so much uncertainty, playing in games with lineups they haven't even practiced with. That isn't a competitive challenge. That's organizational chaos. It screams of a lack of a clear plan from the top down, and it's absolutely exhausting and demoralizing for any player who craves structure and a clear path to success. Then, there's the biggest clue about her state of mind and her vision for her own future, her clear excitement about joining the unrivaled league. This is critical and cannot be overstated. This isn't just an athlete going home to rest or play a few casual off-season games. This is a deliberate, strategic move. The unrivaled league, founded by stars like Nafisa Collier and Breanna Stewart, represents something the WNBA has often struggled to provide consistently: player control, enhanced visibility, and a direct financial stake in their own success. By choosing to invest her precious offseason there, Lexi Hall is casting a vote of no confidence. She's signaling that she believes more in an emerging, player-driven model than in the traditional, often rigid, system she just experienced. And in the shadow of potential CBA fights over revenue sharing, travel conditions, and even rumblings of a future lockout, her move to Unrivaled isn't just about playing more basketball. It's about seeking security and respect in a system she can trust and help shape. It's a silent but powerful indictment of the uncertainty and lack of control she just endured with the Fever. She is pivoting from a situation of chaos to one of empowerment. This decision tells us that for players like Lexi, the future of professional women's basketball might not be monolithic. It might be an ecosystem where leagues like the WNBA and Unrivaled coexist, and players will gravitate toward the environment where they feel most valued, both professionally and personally. Her departure is therefore not just a sports story. It's a business story with massive implications. This brings us to the billion-dollar question, the one that hangs over this entire franchise like a dark cloud. What about Caitlin Clark? It's crucial to state this clearly and unequivocally. This is not Caitlin Clark's fault. She didn't ask for this immense scrutiny. She didn't instruct the media to ignore her teammates. She is a generational talent navigating a phenomenon that is largely unprecedented in her sport. But her mere presence creates a sociological reality that is incredibly difficult for other players to exist within. The spotlight on Clark is so blinding, so all-consuming, that everyone else is relegated to the shadows. When Lexi Hall dove on the floor, sacrificing her body, it was a brief footnote in the game recap. When Caitlin Clark adjusted her shoelace, it could trigger a segment on a national talk show. You can only live in that shadow, having your hard work consistently overlooked for so long before your professional pride kicks in. You start to wonder what it would be like to play somewhere your contributions are the main event, not an afterthought, where your identity isn't just Caitlin Clark's teammate. The mutual respect between Clark and Hall was palpable and, by all accounts, genuine. In interviews, you could see the unspoken connection. Lexi was one of the few teammates who seemed to truly grasp the unique, isolating pressure Clark was under, often sitting beside her during difficult post-game pressers, offering silent solidarity. She was a crucial part of Clark's tiny, trusted inner circle within the team. Losing that confidant, that on-court safety valve, is a devastating blow for a young superstar entering her second year, a period known as a sophomore slump, where opponents have a full year of tape to study and schemes become more sophisticated. The expectations are astronomical, and now she has to face this gauntlet without one of her most trusted lieutenants, both amplifying pressure on her to perform and isolating her further within the very locker room she is supposed to lead. So what now? The practical implications for the Fever are dire. You can find another player, but you cannot easily replace that specific combination of heart, hustle, and locker room presence. Who becomes a defensive stopper? Who is the one to rally the troops when momentum shifts? Who does Caitlin Clark look to when she needs a bucket or when she needs a calming presence on the court? The void Lexi Hall leaves is about more than stats. It's about soul. The Fever's fan base finally felt like it had a core to believe in. Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hall. That core has now been fractured before it ever reached its potential. If the front office doesn't have a brilliant, immediate plan to fill this massive hole, the team risks devolving into a one-woman show. And in basketball, one-woman shows never, ever win championships. But within this crisis lies a terrifying and fascinating opportunity. This could be the moment that forges Caitlin Clark into the leader she was always meant to be. We've seen the scorer, the icon, the revolutionary talent who changed the economic landscape of her sport overnight. But now, we are about to see the leader. Last season, she was the rookie phenomenon, the spark plug whose job was primarily to ignite the offense and adapt to professional game. She could even subconsciously lean on the quiet stability of veterans and rely on players like Lexi Hall to handle the intangible stuff, the locker room morale, the unspoken communication on the court, the emotional support during brutal losing streaks. That safety net, woven with trust and shared experience, has now been violently cut. With Lexi Hall's departure, there is no one left to hide behind. The curtain has been pulled back, and Clark is now forced to step fully into the leadership vacuum that has plagued the Fever for years. This is no longer about just being the best player on the team. It's about becoming its undeniable heart, soul, and voice. The dynamics have fundamentally shifted. She will have to be the one initiating the difficult conversations in timeouts, not just listening to them. She will have to be the one pulling a struggling rookie aside for encouragement or holding a 10-year veteran accountable for a defensive lapse. She must become the architect of team chemistry, actively building bridges between cliques and fostering a culture of shared responsibility, something that was noticeably absent in the chaotic whirlwind of last season. Her fiery, ultra-competitive demeanor, which sometimes rubbed opponents, referees, and even her own teammates the wrong way, now must be refined and channeled. That raw, burning intensity can't just be an external force. It must become an internal engine for the entire roster. She has to learn to use that fire not to scorch the earth around her, but to forge a collective steel in her team. It's about transforming a personal trait into a communal asset. This is the ultimate sink or swim moment in her young career. She can either embrace this immense, almost unfair pressure and use it as the anvil upon which she hammers herself into a more complete player in person, or the sheer weight of it all could crack the very foundation of her confidence and stall her ascent. The easy path, the one of just putting up historic stats on a losing team, is no longer an option. The narrative around her is evolving, and the world is watching to see if she can be the cornerstone of a winner, not just a star of a spectacle. Think about what true leadership entails at this level. It's not just about hitting the game-winning shot. It's about ensuring everyone is in the right position to make that shot possible. It's about knowing when to demand the ball and when to sacrifice your own stats to get a hot-handed teammate going. For Clark, this means a seismic shift in her on-court perspective. She will need to become a coach on the floor with a heightened sense of the entire chessboard, not just her next move. She'll need to recognize when a post player has a mismatch she can exploit, even if it means she doesn't take the shot. She'll need to communicate defensive switches with clarity and authority, organizing her teammates into a cohesive unit. This is a far cry from the get the ball and go freedom of her college days. This is about managing an ecosystem, and it's a skill she was only able to dabble in as a rookie. Furthermore, her relationship with the media must evolve. Last season, she was often the sole focus, the story. Now, she must become a conduit, using her massive platform to shine a light on her teammates. She can proactively deflect praise, highlighting the defensive stop by a role player that made her three-pointer possible. She can talk about the team's growth and collective goals, deliberately shifting the narrative away from herself and onto the group. This isn't just good PR, it's a powerful leadership tool that builds trust and buy-in from the rest of the roster. When players who toil in obscurity feel seen and valued by their superstar, their commitment and effort levels skyrocket. Lexi Hall was one of those players who likely never felt fully seen by the outside world. Clark now has the power and the responsibility to ensure the next Lexi Hall feels that appreciation directly from her. This loss, while profoundly stinging and creating a mountain of new, complex problems, also has the paradoxical effect of removing all excuses. The front office's failures in building a stable, functional roster are now laid bare for the entire league to see. The team's internal instability is an undeniable fact. There could be no more vague promises about building for the future. The future is now, and it is squarely on Caitlin Clark's shoulders. This clarity, while brutal, is also liberating. There is no ambiguity about her role anymore. She is the franchise. Every practice, every game, every interaction will be a test of her leadership mettle. We've seen this story before in sports history, where a devastating loss or the departure of a key veteran became the catalyst for a superstar's evolution. It's a painful but necessary rite of passage. For Clark, this is that moment. The path to true leadership, however rocky and fraught with peril, is now clearer than ever before. It's a path that requires vulnerability, a willingness to make mistakes, and the strength to shoulder blame even when it isn't entirely hers to bear. It's about lifting others up not just with her passes, but with her words and her actions. The Indiana Fever are no longer just Caitlin Clark's team because she's the best player. They must become Caitlin Clark's team because she is their undisputed leader. The question is no longer if she can score, but if she can inspire. The answer to that question will define not only her season, but the very future of the Indiana Fever franchise. The pressure is unimaginable, but so is the opportunity for a legacy that goes far beyond points per game. She wanted the spotlight. Now it's time to see if she can use its heat to warm her entire team, or she'll be consumed by its glare. The Indiana Fever are at a crossroads. One path leads to continued chaos, a franchise defined by its inability to support its generational talent. The other path, the harder one, requires Clark to ascend and the management to finally get it right. Lexi Hall's exit isn't the end of the story. It might just be the shocking, painful beginning of the next one. So what do you think? Will this loss ultimately force Caitlin Clark to evolve into the undeniable leader the Fever need? Or is this the first domino to fall in a much larger collapse of franchise? Let us know your take in the comments below. And if you found this deep dive into the drama unfolding in Indiana as fascinating as we did, do us a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more content that goes beyond the headlines. Thanks for watching.